region to address human rights abuses in Uganda. Fellow opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi, also known as Bobi Wine, decried the situation in Uganda, saying the government of the day had rendered talk of human rights as taboo. The two are among leaders from Uganda who chose Kenya as the place to commemorate the second anniversary of what they termed as the November 2020 massacres. 54 Ugandans died, mainly at the hands of police in protests against the jailing of Bobi Wine, who was at that time a presidential candidate. Azimio One Kenya coalition leader Martha Karua called for unity among Uganda's opposition leaders in their quest to liberate the country, even as she decried the erosion of democracy across the world and in Kenya. Mary Mwoki reports.
Just before noon on November 18, 2020, 2 months ahead of Uganda's general election, security forces arrested Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine, as he prepared to hold a campaign rally in eastern Uganda. As news spread about Kyagulanyi's arrest, protests erupted in Kampala and other parts of the country for 2 days. In response, police clamped down violently on opposition supporters, and at the end of the 2 days, over 50 Ugandans died and hundreds others injured. Scores disappeared and have never been seen again. 2 years later, the pain still lingers for many of the survivors.
My husband is called Nalmoso Vincent. Was abducted on the 1st of December 2020 through a lot. Because ever since he was taken, we've never heard from him. We don't know where he is.
Shoot me 2 times. The first one is here. The other one is here.
Musician turned politician Robert Kyagulanyi, whose arrest spurred the mass protests and led to the subsequent arbitrary arrests, abductions, killings and torture of opposition supporters, thanked Kenyans for their support while lamenting over the lack of democracy and freedom of expression in Uganda.
But thanks to the brothers and sisters in Kenya, you started massive protests, which protests spread to the entire world. That is the reason why I'm still alive. This is a Ugandan issue, and we should be holding this conference in Uganda. It's very unfortunate that we cannot be in Uganda. We cannot mourn our people in Uganda.
Kizza Besigye, who has found himself on the wrong side of Museveni's regime, called on the East African community to call out the human rights injustices happening in Uganda.
Violence, the waves of abuses have been going on and they are endless. And that's why, in fact, in our region, we must focus on Uganda. Because Uganda's abuses have also been internationalized. If we don't solve the problems in Uganda, this region will never settle.
I think there is a recession of democracy all over the world, and Kenya is no exception. Vigilance is the price of democracy.
The families of those who died in the security crackdown are yet to be compensated, despite Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni saying the government would compensate the victims. Opposition leaders and human rights activists have called out East Africa member states for what they term as silence in the face of human